Welcome to Parent Conversations. It's the 7th of March. Can you believe it already? And spring is only 2 weeks away. I'm so excited. I've had enough snow, ready for some warmer weather. We are glad to welcome Austin Hepworth today. He is an attorney. He does some small business and oh shoot, the word escaped me. Estate planning. That's the area of expertise that he works in, and he is going to share his. Is it kind of your pet project, Austin? Is that what we can call it?
I'd say it's my full-time project.
It's your full-time project.
What
Okay,
I do full-time.
it's the Believe project. He's going to share that information with us. Before we get started, I want to recognize the Bear River Health Department and the Central Utah Public Health Department and the Davis County Health Department. Without the grants from these three health departments, our parent conversations, our weekly discussions that we've enjoyed so much over the last year would not be possible. So thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, if you have questions and you would like to chime in, you are welcome to do so. Just unmute yourself or raise your hand. You can type something in the chat and I will read it if you don't want to have your voice be heard. But we are going to turn the time over to Austin, and I look forward to learning more about the Believe project. Austin, take it away.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Definitely appreciate what you're doing. Really like the support you're looking to provide to families here. Families are a big part of my life for sure. I have 7 children. I also come from a family of 9 children. My wife comes from a family of 9 as well. And so my kids have 32 aunts and uncles, a lot more cousins. And family is a big part of our life for sure. But like you said, I'm an attorney by background and training. I graduated law school in 2010, and I've been fortunate to do a lot of different, legal cases, be involved with a lot of different people, and see a lot of different things across the country. I've had cases from Rhode Island to Hawaii and worked with all types of people. And one of my goals coming out of law school was to actually make a difference for good in the world. I think that's a pretty general goal, but I was pretty concerned about the Constitution, focusing on that. And I worked hard to, defend the Constitution in court. But I discovered pretty quickly that the court and the law is kind of the last place that society shaped. There's a lot more to our life in society than the law alone. And as I started looking, trying to figure out, where we have the ability to really make a difference, it kept coming back to a very individual, family type level, community level. And so ultimately, in 2019, I started an initiative called Believe, where the goal is to help people believe that they have the capacity or power to change the world for good. I feel very strongly that each one of us has the ability to influence the world around us, to make a difference, and to be able to set a good mark on the world. I don't believe we're just victims of circumstance or victims of the powers that be around us. I know that there's plenty of things to worry about, whether it's a pandemic or a war or whatever political side we fall on, looking at the different things that take place. But I've discovered that when we open up our minds and hearts and are willing to be proactive about building good, that there's a lot that can be done. And so Believe is really meant to help create a community of people that are working proactively to change the world, to do something good. There's so many things to do that we can't do them all. We don't have to, I think, feel responsible to do everything, but we can essentially lift where we stand. We each have a job or a responsibility, an industry we work in, people, we live around a neighborhood and things. And we often underestimate the impact that that has on our lives. I'm a firm believer that the world changes as communities, families, and individuals change. And that we truly can be an influence for good through really working our sphere of influence. I like to talk a lot about our sphere of influence, those that we come in contact with, those that we have responsibility for, or those we serve. And by being a good example there, we can do quite a bit. So believe is really a lot of various efforts to help people develop to help strengthen their faith and belief in themselves, to help them become confident and willing to work and try for different things. And so at any point as we're talking today, if you have any questions for me, feel free to raise any of those, whether it's about legal matters or believe or whatever we're working on. If you have questions, feel free to interject at any time. But believe has taken, I'd say we typically, I've heard a quote I loved once that says, "You can't steer a parked car." And to me, what it means is if we're looking for something to do or some kind of direction for our life or a place we should put our energy, it's very hard to get direction if we're just sitting there, or if we're just, whether we pray or whether we meditate or we seek inspiration or read books or, whatever it is we do to try and find something to motivate us. It's hard to do when we're not moving. And so as an example, something I discovered is, I'd say back in, it was 2020, December 2020, some issues, societal issues came to my attention that I was quite concerned about. It troubled me personally. And I really wanted to do something about it. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do. And I remember I personally am someone that prays, and I prayed and was trying to get some insight onto what I should do. And as I did, nothing came. And I finally decided I needed to at least try what I could within my sphere of influence. And so I contacted 3 people I knew that I thought might feel the same and invited them to do a Zoom call with me. And we just, one afternoon, we did a Zoom call. It lasted about 2 hours. We talked about the issue. We brainstormed on it. And ultimately, at the end of the 2 hours, we still had no idea what to do. It felt like a pretty big issue that was of high concern to all of us, but we didn't know what to do. So that call ended, and I had moved a little. But as a result of the call, one of the participants that I invited just started checking around on Facebook, and they found this group that was working on similar things. So they reached out to them, and it turns out they were having a meeting that night. He asked if we could join to help contribute potentially. And they needed some help from an attorney. And so suddenly I was in this group, and as part of this group, there were some legislative representatives from the state capitol that were there. And I was quite surprised to learn that they were working on drafting a bill about this issue. They needed help about it, some legal help to draft and do different parts of it. And so I suddenly went from not knowing anything that I could do about this to being connected to representatives that were working on it. And as part of this, I then found myself testifying at the Capitol during the legislative session that followed in 2021, and working with quite a few different groups as a result of that. And it was really interesting to me to see that when I put forth the effort I had to do something, decided to try, and I didn't receive any specific direction on what to do, but I tried within my sphere of influence. The door opened up, and I was able to make an influence on that particular issue. And it was something that I've seen happen time and time again, where there's not always an immediate connection like there was that time. That one happened pretty quickly. But I've been very interested to see when we start moving and we're not just parked, we just start driving, start trying to see what we can discover, whether it's just exploring the town or whatnot, figuratively speaking, and that some amazing things can happen. And so translating this into the family side, I believe strongly that each one of us comes here with a piece of truth inside of us, that we're part of being alive is to have truth that resides in us. And as I look at our ancestors and all those who have gone before, we have a very long line of people who contributed to get us here. People that went through times of being serfs in Europe, or crossing the seas to come to America, or whatever it was that they did. There were a lot of really neat examples of ancestors and others who were able to come and contribute and leave us something, some purpose. If you look at our genes, our DNA, I like to think that each person that went before has a little piece left in us, something that's still there. And I personally believe the more we learn about them, the more we can come to understand our purpose and calling in this life, the things that we are supposed to do to help shape this world. And I like to view it as something of, if we view it like a light bulb, if each DNA strand's a light bulb or something, that once we learn about and connect to those people more, additional light can go on inside of us. And so one of the things that we like to push people to do is to really explore their past, to find more about themselves and their family identity. When you think about families and names associated with it, there's a lot of identity that can come to a family. And one of the things that we encourage people to do, and something I've been experimenting with my own family, is to really help families develop mission and purpose statements, so that the children can grow up with a strong sense of purpose and identity. There's been 2 interesting studies done that focused on successful children and what made children successful. And as the studies looked at it and tried to determine what it was that shaped children and gave them success, whether it was wealth or access to resources or what it was. And this is success also being defined by the level of happiness that the child has inside once they've grown older. The study went through and looked at a lot of different factors, and ultimately they came to an interesting conclusion that the most successful children were those that had the strongest sense of identity and purpose, those that knew their family, those that knew they had a place and something that they could do. And this isn't to say that, if my children are part of my family, they have to be an attorney or have to do something in the law. But it's more to say that we have things that we're supposed to do as a family, that it kind of follows through, and we can utilize our own gifts and talents and combine those to be a force for good that shapes and helps mold society with the things that matter to our family. And so I've been interested, as my family's worked to develop a family mission statement. I've seen some families that have come up with some very creative ones, very artistic, very, they can rhyme, they can do different things, and that's really neat. Say that my talents aren't really in that area, so ours isn't anything super fancy. And we're still trying to develop it and make it sound better over time. But we've done a few things that I feel really help our kids have that sense of identity and purpose. And one is that we have some little things that our kids can wear to help them see that they're part of something bigger. So for example, we made just some wristbands. Let's say believe, a big part of our family purpose is to believe. And these wristbands are things that the kids love wearing. They also love sharing them with other people. And it gives them a strong sense of identity and purpose to be able to know that we're focused on believing in ourselves and the good of those around us. And we printed a shirt that says believe on it, that my kids can wear, and they love to wear them. It's something that really helps them have meaning to what they are doing. And those are things that families can do. It's real easy to order some wristbands. It's really easy to print a shirt from any company that gives your kids more of a purpose and also something to share with other people. So it encourages them to be part of, to take the family goals and mottos and values and share them with others. There's all kinds of ways to do that. It doesn't have to be a shirt or a wristband. Those are just examples. But something else that we've done that I've really enjoyed so far is, for a long time I was in the New Year's resolution trap, where New Year's would come and I would try and make a resolution for the whole year. And at the end of the year, when I go back and look at my resolutions, I would usually do one of them But I'd usually have a bunch that just didn't work out. I tried for a time and it didn't work out. And so I realized that for me and my kids, 1 year was a long time to try and commit to something that we hadn't really done before. And so we started doing monthly goals and resolutions where we take goals and we pick some different categories, whether it be something we want to do to improve our physical self or our spiritual self, or emotional well-being or intellectual well-being. And we make goals for that month in those things. And we have personal goals that each person makes that's kind of tied into the purpose, saying, hey, what is it that we proactively want to work on? What do we want to become? What do we want to be able to do? And then we also make family goals, the same things. What do we want to improve as a family? What do we want to do together? And breaking it down month by month, the kids only have to do something for a month. So if they set a goal that they really hate, if they decide halfway into it, they really don't like it, it's not a significant amount of time to try and keep at it. And then they can change it later. If they like a goal, they can keep doing it month to month. You can do the same goals before and continue trying to pursue that. And we've been able to just the personal goal ones, we give our kids a little bit of money if they accomplish a goal, and they don't get it if they don't. And that's been a great incentive for them each month to be able to have a little reward for accomplishing their goals, and also some natural consequences, or whatever you want to call it, if they don't get it, where they don't get quite as much money. And then the family goal side, when we do things together, we like to pick an activity or something fun that we're going to do if each member of the family accomplishes that goal. And I found that we usually will miss one or two things in our personal goals, and get a little less money or reward out of that. But the family goal ones, we haven't missed a single one yet, because there's no one wants to be the reason that the family doesn't get a goal. And so it's been neat to see how much that's pushed and shaped our children to work together to accomplish those things. And it's neat to see how they've really developed as part of that. One of their favorite goals right now, we like to set a social goal as a family, something that we'll do with other people. And one of the favorite things they have is to have people over for dinner. We started making goals of how many people we'd invite over for dinner, and try and connect with our community and those around us, our neighbors and others. And my kids have just loved having people over. We try and make it pretty simple. It's pretty, we don't cook anything crazy. No, but just people come over, and then we can play a little game or whatnot. And we've had some people who are very elderly to young people to the whole gamut. And typically people are quite surprised by how much volume there is in our house with our 7 kids. But they tend to really enjoy it. And I've been surprised, it's sad, but how many people are so surprised themselves to get an invite over for dinner. It's not something that seems to happen a lot. And so it's been fun to work to create community that way, and just to let the kids talk about people they see, whether it's someone at church or someone down the street or whatever. Let them voice their feelings, let them have some say in who comes over. And if 2 kids have different opinions, then we can have 2 different nights with people over for dinner. But we really enjoyed the monthly resolutions. And I feel that it's definitely shaped us far better than the New Year's goals or the New Year's resolutions, because it's a lot more manageable. And then also doing it as a family has been really neat. So that's one example of trying to work together, trying to help instill purpose in children. From the moving perspective, in Believe, what we like to try and do is to have a lot of projects and initiatives that we're involved in. So that if a family or an individual comes and says, hey, we'd love to work on something, we'd love to be a part of something, we don't really have direction, what can that be? We like to try and have things that we're working on. And so one example of an initiative that we took up was that one concern we've had is for the mental health state in children. And we wanted to do something about that to help improve those conditions for children. And so 2 initiatives that came out of that were that one, there's a alternative health practice called brain integration, and it offers a lot of help and assistance for children who struggle. It's a drug-free method. It involves acupressure points and things. And it's been really impressive to see some of the things that they can do. And so there were some Utah laws that made it difficult for them to do everything they needed to do. And so we took up some initiatives and helped lobby or helped work with the legislature to change some of those laws. We got those laws changed so that brain integration practitioners can practice in the state, under color of law and have the ability to do that. Created some safeguards and some good industry practices as part of that, but are trying to help open that up to more Utah families to make that more of an option for people. In addition, and so that's involved, just all kinds of work where one of the things that Believe does is that it has, you could say, a professional network of people who are motivated in doing the same thing. And so if there is a project or initiative, we will try and reach out and collect the necessary professionals to work on that. Sometimes it can cost money depending on who's involved or what's needed. Sometimes people are willing to do it for free if it resonates with, some of the things they feel inside. But again, if there's any families or anything that have things they want to work on, we like to help provide a springboard for that. We love to support people who are working to build something good. And so the health side was a lot of fun with the brain integration and the work that we did with them, and involved a fair number of professionals and others that we worked with to get that through, some great legislative reps. And then in addition to that, one of the things that I personally believe, I don't exactly have science to back it up, but it's something I believe, and so it's something I was willing to act on. I believe that movement is really good for children. And if they're able to develop confidence through using their bodies, through trying new things, learning new things, that it can really help with a lot of emotional support for children. And it's something I've seen in my children where they can struggle more with stress or anxiety or depression type issues. But if they're moving and have a physical outlet for a lot of stress, they can manage it much better. And so we started an initiative called Believe Sports, where the purpose is to change the culture of sports. So to make it so that kids can have fun trying things that they're not good at, and adults too. Believe Sports is meant to be a family-based model where parents and children can work together to learn things. I haven't yet met anyone that's good at everything that's possible physically, whether from juggling to basketball to golf to whatever. There's always something that someone could use help with, or that they can try and learn and improve with. And so in Believe Sports, we like to try and do a bunch of different activities, take people through things they're good at. If they're good at it, we encourage them to help others who aren't. And if they're not good at it, we encourage them to keep trying. And we try and create a culture that celebrates trying. One common thing that happens in sports is that children drop out of sports at a very high level by the time they're about 12. I looked at some studies that said that a significant number of children, 70% or something, I think, will drop out of sports by the time they're 12, because the culture becomes so, it's just not inspirational. It's not motivating for them. And they often don't feel that they measure up to what's necessary there. And college back east did a study where they asked a lot of kids the things that they enjoyed most about sports. And they had 82 different things that have the kids rank. It was a pretty in-depth, extensive study. And in that one, winning, the kids ranked it as about right in the middle. It was in the 40s for where it fell in the things they liked most. They had over 40 other things they liked more about sports than winning. And our society today tends to focus on winning, so much so that you'll hear people say that they hate losing more than they like winning. And one reason we feel they hate losing is because we don't celebrate attempts. We don't celebrate people trying and learning and doing. And so that's a need that we saw, something that we saw we could do to help children with mental health, emotional issues. We also saw it as a way to connect families more, to give people things to do, as well as to provide a means for kids or adults to become entrepreneurs. We feel strongly that a lot of people, to do what they're supposed to do, will start something, whether it's a business, a project, initiative, cause, any of those things, and that the entrepreneur skills can be very helpful for that. And so in Believe Sports, we try and make a model where people can come in and start their own program, or they can charge for it and things, and we can just provide the means, and or not the means, the tools they need to do that and make it as easy as possible. The Believe Sports model was tested last year. It's not entirely, there's still a few pieces we're putting together to finalize it, but it's one that we're actively working on. And it's just an example of where we see a need and just say, well, what can we do? And the goal is to encourage parents and children to do the same, to say, what is it we can do as a family? What are the skills we have, the gifts we have? What are things that we can do to help people do that? And as part of that, we always have in life, we have challenges that come, we have trials, obstacles, whatever else it is. You know, some of us may feel we can't do anything because we don't have money or because we don't have time. And the thing that I've discovered is, I remember thinking once that I didn't have time for some things. And as I thought about it, I reflected on I just felt God kind of asked me, have you ever been late for court? When I have a client and I appear in court, have I ever missed it? Have I ever been late? And I thought, well, no, of course not. I'm going to be on time. I'm going to do what I need to do. And the principle I was being taught was that, well, of course, I was on time for court because I put it as a priority. It was something that I cared about, something that mattered to me. I took it seriously to represent clients, and I wasn't going to miss that. And when I realized that also, well, I eat every day. I sometimes don't eat as much as I should or as well as I should, but I somehow find time to eat. I find time to sleep some. Again, not always enough. But these things are priorities. And I generally would shower. I'm not going to meet with clients without being clean. And these are simple examples, but they highlighted to me that my priorities determined what I did with my time. As I started looking at that, I saw a quote. I saw a few different quotes that talked about how the way to achieve something, the way is to say no to things, and the way to say no is to have a greater yes burning inside. That's something that we want to achieve or do. And that's where the purpose and the calling and the mission, when we have our individual identity sorted out, we know what we want to do. We know what we want to achieve. And that allows us to prioritize, to say no to some things. So if there's a new job opportunity that comes up, we can evaluate it in light of what we're trying to accomplish in life. If we're deciding whether we put kids in this activity or another activity or how we manage that, we can ask ourselves if it's getting us closer to where we want our children to ultimately get in the end. And so to me, it's been very helpful to have that, to start to say no to things. And it got to the point where in 2020, I was running my own law firm and it had grown fairly successful, but it wasn't taking me in the direction that I wanted to go. And so I shut it down. I just stopped and shifted course to say, I want to figure out how to do more than just be a paid attorney to kind of fight fires that come up. I didn't want to fight fires anymore. I wanted to be proactive in building and achieving things. And it's been a very interesting journey, but it's been one that's been really good to realize that I don't have to be subject to whatever comes up in life. I don't have to be subject to, whoever calls that day. I can say, no, I can help you get to someone else, or I can say, yes, that's in line with what I want to do. And as I've as I've taken the steps to do that and believed it's possible, it's been fascinating to see how doors open that allow me to still support my family, that allow me to still take care of 7 children, but also proactively try and build things. And I believe that can be the same for anybody. I don't believe any of us have to be stuck in a job that consumes all our time, or different challenges that consume all our time. I believe that time is an asset that we can use and we can make decisions about. Some of it takes transition time, a period of transitioning to be able to do things. But if we start to walk that journey and we start to move the car, there's a lot of direction that can come as we start driving the car, and we can receive a lot of inspiration about where to go. But on the note of challenges, one of the things I do see with clients in law that I still do is there's always something that comes. It seems that when you start doing something good in the world, some big issue comes up. It's like the world, the law of opposition or whatever you want to call it. If there's good that's going to come from what you're doing, there will be some opposition to it. And there's a story that I love of an old horse. And the old horse fell down a well. It was a dry well. It was a deeper well, and the horse managed to survive. It was at the bottom that was injured. But the well was deep enough that the people at the time couldn't see the horse at the bottom. They could hear it. They knew it was still alive. And with the tools they had available to them, they tried to get it out and they couldn't. And so they decided that they couldn't shoot it because the chance of a ricocheted bullet was pretty high, since they couldn't see exactly where they were shooting in the well. And so someone finally decided, well, we should probably just bury the horse alive to get it out of its misery too, so it doesn't just have to sit down there and starve to death. And so the people started, and they started throwing dirt in, shovelful after shovelful, expecting to bury the horse alive, but they kept digging and digging, throwing dirt in, and they could still hear the horse. And eventually it got to the point where they could see the horse now. It was still there, it was standing up. And every time they'd throw a shovel full of dirt in on the horse's back, it would just shake and let the dirt fall to the ground, and then it would continue stepping. And it used the dirt that was meant to bury it as a way to let it rise, to step up. And I believe strongly that any obstacles, challenges, sickness, anything that comes into our life is something that can be a stepping stone. It doesn't have to drown us. It doesn't have to bury us. But if we open our minds to believe that there's always a way, there's always something good that can come from it, that can happen. And so I like to really work with people to just help brainstorm, to say, okay, we're in this bad spot. This is a tough spot. What can we do? What's a purpose that could come from this? What's something good that could come? How can we make that happen? How can we turn this into something good? And I found that when we approach life with that type of mentality, we're far happier. We feel more in control, because life isn't what's going to dictate how things go for us. We're still going to pursue things and be in control of that. And I believe the more we feel in control of our existence, the happier we are, and the less depression we have, the less anxiety we have, because we know that we're capable of making a difference. The world is shaped by people that believe they have the power to shape it. And those that believe they have the power to shape it will actively pursue that. Some shape it for bad and evil, others for good, but we can believe and shape it ourselves. And so ultimately the believe cause is to really come full circle and help individuals see that they can change the world for good. That's our little slogan, that you can change the world for good. We all have the power to do that. The only difference between me and Jeff Bezos, that controls Amazon, is the fact that he believed and pursued something. He has different talents for sure. I wouldn't build an Amazon, but I can build something, and it can have just as much impact if I really believe it and continue to pursue it. People that run for office, that do different things, people whose names we hear, we don't have to have our name heard to be an amazing influence in this world. There's so much that can happen through people that are just willing to work and do things. And that is something that I've seen time and time again. Just countless people doing countless good things. Um, and so that's kind of a little bit about Believe. We have other initiatives. We have Believe Academy that's meant to help individuals pursue their own purpose. If you have something you want to do, what do you need to learn for that? It's not, Believe Academy is again getting close to launching. It's one that we're building. We really encourage people to redefine their industry that they're in. If you are doing a job and you're doing something, well, how can you do it better? How can you improve the world through what you're doing? And as an example, with the law, we launched Believe first, because attorneys are typically, people don't love talking to them. People don't love working with us. We've made the industry fairly toxic. And attorneys like to charge per hour. So if you call up and just say, hey, how's my case going? You'll get billed for it usually. And it's a painful thing for people to communicate with attorneys. And Utah did a survey that showed that a majority of business owners would not be willing to talk to an attorney even if they were sued. We've had such negative experiences with it. And to me, that's a sign that, well, there's a lot there, a lot of potential to change. We can try and make the legal industry a better one. And so at Believe First, we're launching it with a mission to change the legal industry for the better. We want to lift where we stand, take those things. We have another member of Believe that's launched Believe Cuts. He's a barber. He wants to lift where he stands too, and change that industry some, have a lot more service opportunities. He wants to take nonprofits and other people who are working and doing things and go out, spotlight them, give them a free haircut, and just show that he believes in them. He's passing a little bit on with his haircuts and encouraging them to continue doing what they're doing. And these things, while each one may be just a piece, will be something that can come together as good individuals work to do the things that the skills they have, the talents they have, the knowledge they have, to utilize that to just create those situations, as well as create the goals and the proactive nature of it. And so to me, we can change the world, but to do that, we have to change our heart. We have to start believing it's possible. We have to stop blaming things on other people. And when we say, oh, I don't like this about the world, or oh, I wish this were different, instead of just saying that, stopping and saying, what can me or my family do? What could our monthly goal be? There's an issue that bothers me in the world. What's something we can do about it? And set a goal, work towards it. Just start moving, do something and see what comes. And that to me is a very fulfilling way to live life. And so I don't know if there's any questions, comments that anyone has, but that's a little bit about Believe. And it's something that ultimately I would just encourage each person to really take the time to think through with your family, what's something you can proactively work for, and then start finding ways to pursue that.
Thank you. I did have a question. You said you've got 7 children, yes?
Yes.
What are the ages? And give us an idea of some of the goals that you've set aside for certain age groups, the monthly goals that you talked about.
Yeah, so my kids currently range from 15 to 3 in age. So we have someone at almost every stage except for adult stage, I guess. But they're all still in the home and we work on things. And for example, my daughter that's turning 8 here in a few weeks, she made the goal that she wanted to bake treats for neighbors. One of the things we wanted as a family to do is to help people believe that there's good in the world. And so she likes to make treats. She loves to cook. She's really good at it. She cooks breakfast for us. And usually my kids say that her eggs are better than my eggs or my wife's eggs. So, but she took the skill that she had and the talent she has and she says, well, I'm going to cook things for neighbors. And she's willing to go drop them off at neighbors, stand there and talk to them. And it's been really neat to see her take that initiative to do that. Some other goals, trying to think through what my kids had. Some of them have been, and one of my son, for example, he's younger and jump roping is very difficult for him. And so as part of us developing belief and confidence in ourselves and pushing to try new things, I made the personal goal of jump roping 10 minutes 3 times a week, and he decided to do it with me. And so he came, and he would typically do 1 at a time, and that was all he could do, but he tried it every week, every day with me until he could get up to 16 jumps in a row, and he was so excited by it. But you can see his confidence as a younger child being built a lot by that. And so typically with it, we just try and, sometimes my younger kids will come in and say, hey, I'm going to do this 30 times this month. And I say, well, that's probably not, too realistic. Let's pare that down. Maybe try for 10 times this month and see how that goes. Whereas some of the older kids, typically the younger kids want to do more than they can. And the older kids want to do a little less than they can. And so you try and balance it out and push them. But one of my older daughters made the goal of giving 10 sincere compliments to people each week. To try and help promote things like that. And it's been really fun. We can put them up on the wall. We can talk about it at dinner. Hey, how are your goals coming? And I've really, really enjoyed the monthly goal activities with the kids, watching them work on this.
That's awesome. I do have another question, but I was going to let somebody else ask a question if they had one. Okay, we'll just let them chime in as they can.
I
you
just think
mentioned,
this is all super awesome.
What, Shirley, say that again?
I just think this is all super awesome, and Austin just thinks so much like we think. I love it. So go forward with your question.
Yeah, well, Austin, you'd mentioned that you celebrate effort, and we have a Discovery Family Adventure that does that same thing. In fact, I think it's called Celebrate Failure. Shirley, do you want to talk about the prompting behind that particular Discovery Adventure? I mean, I could summarize it, but since it's...
Yeah, absolutely. It came from an article that I read. It's the founder of Spanx, which is a very successful company. But anyway, she talked about in this article how they, at her home, they talked about, like, usually when you get home from school and parents say, oh, what did you do well today or whatever, they used to talk about, basically, what did you try? And they celebrated failures. The part that really stuck out to me was she talked about coming home one night and she ran through the door. She was so excited to share, I failed so big. I was so bad, but I did it. She had tried out for a play, which was so not her thing. But, she was so excited to share with her family that, what, I did it. And I was horrible, and they are not going to choose me, but I did it. And so anyway, I took that article. I just thought that is such an important concept. And so we have put that into an adventure that is, I think we called it's Redefine Failure, Celebrate Effort. Because again, we don't want to necessarily celebrate like, hey, it's better to fail than to succeed, but we absolutely want to create that space, like you were saying, Austin, where we can try new things. And hey, if it turns out that we're horrible, that's okay. We can celebrate the fact that we tried. That's one of my favorite adventures is, redefine failure, celebrate effort. And the other thing I love about that is because we could take these concepts, like I was just thinking, I love that story that you shared of the horse, and I've heard it before. But as you were sharing it, I thought, you know what, that should be an adventure. What we want to do is take the information that, that's great information. Unfortunately, what happens so many times is we set it aside. Like, I know for me as a parent, I have piles a mile deep of things that, oh yeah, I'm going to read that when I have a chance. And I'm never going to have a chance. If I don't do it now, it's not going to happen. So we can take those, that information and put it into a fun adventure. So now not only are parents going to read the information, but they're going to experience that together as a family. So I love that. I really think we need to create an adventure, something about, the horses and, and taking the dirt and, shaking it off and moving up. I love that. But yes.
I had that same thought, Shirley, about that story. I do love that story. Yep.
Yeah, it's one I love. And one thing that I tried and failed at, that I found to be it was really good for me to try, was Utah had, they often have openings on the appellate court. It comes up, I don't know, once every few years. And they allow anyone to apply, any attorney. You don't have to be a judge. And so one year I decided I was going to apply to be Utah appellate court judge. And, academically and knowledge-wise, I certainly have enough information or enough expertise to be a judge. But I knew I didn't have 40 years like a lot of the other people applying. But I still applied. I went through the process. And it was fascinating to me how much it helped me grow just to apply and put myself in a place where I would be considered for things and looked at, even though I knew in the end I wouldn't get a call. And it was, like you say, about the people that celebrated the failure of trying out for the play. I think we're often, the thing that keeps us down so often is we won't try something because we're afraid of what someone will think about us. And if we can get to the place of being willing to try, no matter what other people think, we gain an incredible level of freedom at that point to be able to do so much because we've stopped worrying about what people think. We're just going to go and prove ourselves. And the very first appellate court argument I had in law school was in a competition. It was in front of some real judges and real attorneys. And I did so bad. They gave me some very harsh feedback. I was terrified. I hated public speaking before law school. And I remember thinking, going home that night and thinking, wow, this was so painful and so bad. Do I still want to be an attorney or not? And I had to decide if I was going to keep trying and practicing. And I ultimately made the decision that I was going to get really good at it and the law side of it. And so I just started voluntarily signing up for competitions. And by the end of law school, I placed in the top 8 in the nation in a tax competition. But it took a lot of pain and effort and failure to get to that place. But it is one where I view a lot of growth potential. So I think that'd be really neat if you guys had something like that.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. I know Catherine's still on here. Catherine, do you have any questions for Austin? Sometimes she's taking care of a baby while she listens, so she might not be right there. But yeah, thank you for sharing. Shirley made the comment that she loved what you were saying. I should have taken more note as to when that chat came in, but yes, it's, yeah, way to put yourself out there. I can't even imagine. And I too had a fear of public speaking, probably until I was in my 40s. Yeah, really afraid of public speaking, but it doesn't seem to bother me so much anymore. It's just you just kind of put yourself in the situation where you have to do it until you're not afraid to do it anymore. And it sounds like exactly what you did. And yeah, you might have bombed the first few, but you did it. And I think it's awesome that you're giving your kids chances to do that, a safe place to do that. And that's what families are for, a safe place for kids to try things and fail with support and celebrate effort. So thank you, Austin. We're going to go ahead and end if nobody else has any comments or questions. And Austin, when I stop recording, don't leave right away. I want to make sure I've got some information from you. Okay. And again, thank you. And we will plan on seeing you next week. We're going to start a parenting series next week for Parent Conversations, and watch for the Facebook groups, and we'll talk about what the first subject is going to be. Thanks, and see you next week. Okay. Oh, wait. I just want to stop there. I just want to stop recording. Yes.